Thank you, President Marshall. Last Wednesday, we enjoyed a beautiful visit to People's Bank Stadium to visit the new Revs and meet the new Revs and the start of baseball. It may seem a little odd to shift today to talking about the sport of football, but this is anything but the off season for the NFL. In fact, we are in prime time as tomorrow is the NFL draft. Most would agree that this time of year is when football teams are positioned to make playoff runs and hopefully a trip to the Super Bowl. How crazy is that? The playoffs in January and February are critically affected for each team's decisions, which are made in March, April, and May of the previous year. The Ravens, like other teams, are right in the middle of the signing their free agents and getting ready to execute their draft plans to fill in the gaps and the holes that they may have. The Ravens in particular have been busy the last 45 days or so, signing free agents Eric Weddle, Benjamin Watson, Mike Wallace, and most recently Trent Richardson. My son Chase would be the first to tell you that the very best GM in football, Ozzie Newsome, will be selecting the 6th pick of the draft and has 8 additional draft picks over the following 2 days to put the Ravens back in contention for the playoffs. Our speaker is Kevin Byrne, Senior Vice President for Public and Community Relations with the Baltimore Ravens. Kevin is an integral part of the franchise for the past 36 years, overseeing first the Browns and then the Ravens at Public and Community Relations Departments. This is Kevin's 3rd time coming to Rotary. In 1996, when the Ravens first came to Baltimore, Kevin brought the Raven Caravan to Rotary, bringing owner Art Modell, All-Pro left tackle Tony Jones, and a new drafted player who was strikingly young and skinny, and I remember as being quite shy, and that was future Hall of Famer Ray Lewis. 2 years ago, Kevin visited us, and the highlight was his first accidentally throwing his Super Bowl ring in the trash can in the restroom here at the York And it brings me he brought great joy to many as he passed around that Super Bowl ring to the rest of the room to try on. He has doubled down today. I wanted to make sure that we actually got that Super Bowl ring back to Kevin, and he does actually have it with him. And he actually brought a second one because the Ravens have won twice. So I'm glad that we did get it back to you, Kevin. Kevin is usually the second person to welcome any new player to the team following General Manager Ozzie Newsome as he coordinates a new addition to the Ravens family. When players do something special in the community, it's Kevin's department that helps get the great news out about the good works. And conversely, when a player lands into a controversy or an unfortunate tragedy like this year's losing a player to a tragic accident, it's also Kevin's department that helps manage the media story that soon follows. Kevin's a critical part of the management team and its decisions, helping to coordinate a huge organization and a huge business. You'll see Kevin in the background of every major move the Ravens make. Along with his internal responsibilities, he also writes a blog for the Ravens site, the Byrne Identity, and does radio shows in the York and Baltimore markets during the season. Kevin, to be quite clear, is a very busy man. Kevin will fill us in on how an organization builds a culture of winning and durability, and it's not easy to win a Super Bowl, but it's exasperating to go 5-11 like the Ravens did last season. The Ravens get to find out just how good their management team really is as they look to return to their traditional winning ways. We've carved out a little extra time that should follow Kevin's remarks for some questions and answers. Fellow Rotarians guests, I would ask that you please warmly welcome the Ravens, Kevin.
Good afternoon. Hello. Good seeing everybody. Thank you, Pastor Michelle, for the purple shout out. We appreciate that. Congratulations to all of you on your 100 years. I enjoy coming up to the Yorktown Hotel. I think this room is pretty cool. But I've never figured out who that person is up there from afar. My eyes aren't very good. That is George Washington, that's what I thought. I want to make sure. Elizabeth and your students. Where are the students? Right over here. Congratulations. And just so you know, it's a big deal for us. Our owner, Steve Bisciotti, calls himself a servant leader. And we hired a coach, John Harbaugh, who when he interviewed, talked about the head coach being a servant to the players to make them better. So servant leadership is most important to the Ravens franchise, and so I congratulate you. Along with Ken, this is my better side, my wife says, so if you can put the camera over here, I'd appreciate it.
Too late.
As Mike mentioned, the last time I was here, I did throw the new Super Bowl ring into the trash after I washed my hands and threw the towel in, and the ring followed it, and I had to dig down in because it's heavy and it sunk. And so I didn't, when I washed my hands this time, I didn't have them on. But I brought two this time. And I brought two this time because a couple years ago I came in here cocky, recent Super Bowl winner, making fun of Eagle fans and Steeler fans. And I know some of you are here. I won't make any comment on the Eagles right now. And but to give myself some credibility, I bought both Super Bowl rings today. One from the 2000 season where Ray Lewis and Jonathan Ogden were dominant players, and our defense set a single season record for the least points, least rushing yards ever given up in one season. It was the single best defense for one season in history. Statistically, in our hearts, we think otherwise. And of course, we won in 2012, where we jumped to this giant lead, and there was a blackout at the Superdome down in New Orleans, and then John's brother Jim got his team rallied during that time. They came back, and it turned out to be one of the great Super Bowls of all time. From the youth court over there, are any of you guys Ravens fans? Or any of the students? No? Right here. Come on over here. What's your name? Pardon? Diamond. Good. Well, this ring has 144 diamonds on it. Diamond, come on up here. So I'm going to do the same thing as last time, and I will not be offended if you take a picture when the rings are handed around. I'm going to hand out both rings. Diamond, you can start any table you want, and you're in charge to make sure I get them back. Now, the best way to do it, if you're taking a selfie, is to put the rings like this, and do like that, so you can see the rings. But you can do it any way you want. The bigger one is from 2012. The smaller one, if you can call that small, is from 2000. And Steve Bisciotti gave David Modell, who was not involved, Art's son, a Super Bowl ring when we won in 2012. And David comes up to me during the ceremony, and he has the two rings. He has his from 2000 and the new one that Steve Bisciotti gave him. And he goes like this, and he goes, "This is a ring, a Super Bowl ring, when Pop Art owns the team," meaning his dad, Art Modell. And he goes, "This is a ring you get when a billionaire owns the team." There's the difference. You know, well, you can do it. They can pass it around, but you need to just pay attention to where those rings are. You know, I believe that the Ravens are a driven, cutting-edge franchise with one focus, and that's winning championships. We're 20 years old, and we've been in the playoffs half of those seasons, 10 times, which is a pretty good percentage. And we have 2 Super Bowl championships, which you'll see with the rings. We're currently one of only 5 teams in the NFL to go to the playoffs 6 of the last 8 years. The Patriots, Packers, Colts, and surprisingly the Bengals are the other 4. The Steelers currently are not in that group. So.
Why should they be?
Yeah. You know, the Hall of Fame coach Bill Parcells, you know, had a great saying, and he would always say, "You are what your record says you are." And today, the Ravens, we are a 5-11 franchise. Steve Bisciotti is a 5-11 owner. Ozzie Newsome, as Mike mentioned, many consider the best general manager in the NFL. He's a 5-11 general manager. John Harbaugh is a 5-11 head coach. And I'm a 5-11 senior vice president. It's awful. But we are resilient, and we're going to come back. Last season was just a miserable experience to go through, especially for a franchise that's not accustomed to losing. And we lost 11 times. We suffered, our fans suffered, but we kept fighting. Despite losing 20 players to injured reserve, and most of those were starters. First game of the year we played at Denver, who became the champion. For you Ravens fans, you probably recall that. Head-to-head, went down the last play of the game. Steve Smith, our most reliable receiver, dropped a pass in the end zone that would have given us the victory in the final 40 seconds. It hurt. It hurt, but we knew that game was going to be close. But it started a series of close games. But during that game, we lost our best defensive player, Terrell Suggs, for the season. He tore an Achilles tendon. By late November, we were without our starting Super Bowl MVP quarterback, Joe Flacco. We had lost our Pro Bowl running back, Justin Forsett. We had lost Steve Smith, also to an Achilles tear. We had lost our starting left tackle, Eugene Monroe. We lost our promising tight end, who was terrific after Steve got hurt, Crockett Gilmore, and we lost our center, Jeremy Zuda. It was tough. It was tough to go through, and we were out there with a lot of young players. We set an NFL record, didn't make it feel any better, for having the most games ever decided by a touchdown or less. 14 of our 16 games were decided by a touchdown or less, and obviously most of those were losses. But we never quit. And I think that was the mark of the John Harbaugh team. He has a terrific way. He would go to that next player and he says, "You're here for a reason. You're paid for a reason. You belong in the league. This is your great opportunity to show that you're worth more, to show that you belong, to show your family and your friends who are watching us that you belong. You weren't a starter early, you are a starter now. We kept you for a reason." And with that, with selling a similar message every single week and attacking every single week, like it was the last game we'd ever play, we kept fighting and losing close games. We got to the second last game of the year, December 27th. We gave a late Christmas present to our fans. We hosted the playoff-bound Big Ben and his band of renown from Pittsburgh over at our place. We started a quarterback, Ryan Mallett, that we had signed to our roster 8 days before, and we beat him. And we were happy for a day. Now it's 2016. We're building again. All those 20 players who were injured last year and we were paying to sit and watch us and rehab, they're all coming back. That's a good thing. We have added players, Mike mentioned, Benjamin Watson, a veteran tight end who caught 74 passes. That's a lot, by the way, for a tight end for the New Orleans Saints last year. Eric Weddle, three-time Pro Bowler from San Diego, a safety, a position we really need. And we haven't solved since Ed Reed left us, but Eric Weddle will make a huge difference for us on the back end of our defense. We signed, for you Steeler fans, a guy who tormented us when he was a Steeler, Mike Wallace, a receiver, who's one of the fastest guys in the United States in football or otherwise. And he comes back to a quarterback, Joe Flacco, like Big Ben, who's willing and loves to throw off and downfield. And we think we'll get the best of Mike Wallace. Those additions are great opportunities for us to succeed. The injured players coming back. By the way, during the season last year, we never made an excuse. We never talked about injuries. And I almost feel guilty that I feel like John Harbaugh is looking over my shoulder saying, we don't talk about injuries here. We just move on. But now, in retrospect, I think I can. Mike mentioned we're on the eve of the draft. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, it starts on NFL Network and ESPN. You can watch it live. We have earned that 6th spot in the draft. We haven't been there in the top 10 since 2003 when we took a junior who just turned 20 from Arizona State, Terrell Suggs, and he became the leading sacker in our history. If we get that lucky tomorrow night, we're going to be a better team. By the way, tomorrow night the draft, it'll go on television up against the network shows, that's ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC. It'll go against NBA playoffs, it'll go against Major League Baseball games that count, and the most watched program in the United States tomorrow night will be the NFL draft, which frankly is just a listing of names. It shows the power of the NFL. But they do a pretty good job of entertaining people while they're doing that. I talked about this the last time I was here, about the marriage of television and the NFL and how it works. And it's got a great history how TV and football works. First of all, the football is played on a rectangle, right? Just like the size of the TV. And it was Art Modell who originally thought of that when he was a young man buying the Cleveland Browns with no money. He borrowed all the money. And it has worked. The most watched programs in history are Super Bowls. 48 of the top 50 shows, I mentioned this last time, 48 of the top 50 most watched programs in the history of the United States. Does not include a Trump debate, does not include the landing on the moon, does not include anything, the final episode of American Idol or the current shows. But there are Super Bowls, 48 of the 50. And there are two shows, obviously not there. I think some of you are here. I think I did this last time. Can anybody guess those two shows? No? Mike hit it, the final episode of MASH. One more. It was a series, a short series.
Roots.
Final episode of Roots. Those are the only two shows in the history of the United States that aren't Super Bowls and the most watched program of all time. So before any NFL team plays a game, you guys are all in business. You know this is a big deal. Before we sell a ticket, before we sell any local sponsorship, the networks give the NFL $27 billion. 27. That's our current TV contracts with CBS, Fox, ESPN, NBC for Sunday night. They give the NFL $27 billion for the right to carry our games. And why would they do that? Since 2005, think about 2005, which is 10 years ago, network television is down 32%. So their network television is losing audience rapidly, because why? There's so many TV shows to watch, right? You know, there's cable, there are 200 channels you can watch. And so network, why do they pay all that money to the NFL? Because we bring audiences. In that same period, the NFL's audience has increased 34%. So we are making up for all the other people leaving regular network television, and that gives us our value. I'll talk a little bit about Art Modell, the first owner of the Baltimore Ravens. And he was a terrific gentleman. He's a high school dropout. His father was found dead on the road in Dallas. He was a traveling wine salesman. And Art was a sophomore in high school. His mother and two sisters. Art drops out of high school and works in the Brooklyn shipyards, cleaning out the hulls of ships for the electricians who worked on the ships. And that's how he started. And he came from that to owning an NFL team. Because when he first got into the television business and recognized that this new thing that people had started watching, and people were fascinated by. So the first thing Art ever did, I thought this was so clever. And sometimes the great salespeople have simple ideas, but they're terrific ideas. So televisions were very expensive when they were first invented. And, maybe 1 in 100 homes had them. So Art got a sponsor, the local grocery store in New York City. And he put televisions in all the grocery stores, so that people would have to come to the grocery store. Then he got the grocery stores to pay him a lot of money for sponsorship because they were putting the TVs in the stores. That's how Art first made his money. And I said, well, that's a terrific idea. And I said, did it work? He said, nah. He said, it didn't work as well. He says, because the TVs never work. So he said, I get round-the-clock calls from grocery store managers saying, my television's out. I've got 100 people in here trying to watch television, and they can't see Milton Berle. So, but Art owned the Browns, and he moved them here because, frankly, he was broke in Cleveland. We had a crummy old stadium, and it wasn't, it was just taking all the money out of his pockets. For all the money the NFL started making, he'd have to put it into the crumbling stadium because he signed a lease to run Cleveland Stadium, which was a bad business deal for Art. But it all worked out in the end because he came here. The Cleveland Browns still exist, and they haven't had the success we've had. But I'll tell one story. I had someone tell me you should tell two stories that you've told before, so I will. The one involves Art Modell and the Steelers. How many Steeler fans? Go ahead and admit it. Good number of you. And you're all old enough, it seems, or most of you, to remember the really good Steeler teams. And the Browns were pretty good in those days when they were competing against Joe Green and Terry Bradshaw and Franco Harris and Mel Blount and Mike Webster. Have I named all of them? Jack Ham, Stallworth, oh, they got Lynn Swan, new athletic director at Southern Cal. So we'd have to find a way to compete with those teams, and they played at Three Rivers Stadium, and for the first 15 years at Three Rivers Stadium, first 15 years it existed, the Cleveland Browns had not beaten the Steelers in Pittsburgh. It was miserable. It was because that's a big deal to the Clevelanders, because, that's the big rival. They hate Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh hates them, and you'd have to warn fans from Cleveland not to go to Pittsburgh with Ohio plates, and same thing would happen with Pennsylvanians coming to Ohio. They crossed that line, you were in trouble. And, you'd see the worst cars driven by people that, basically they could be discarded after the trip. So, and Art Modell was a superstitious man. And so we had stayed in every possible hotel in downtown Pittsburgh, and to be honest, there are not a lot of hotels big enough for a team in downtown Pittsburgh. We were out on the west side suburb, the Marriott. What's that little community over on the west side?
Moon Township.
What's it called?
Moon Township.
Green something?
Green Tree.
Green Tree. We were in the Green Tree Marriott. We lost at that hotel a couple times. And so, but now we think we're good enough to compete with those Hall of Famers. We've got a pretty good team. And the Browns come over for the 16th game of this series at Three Rivers. And in the opening drive, we're on defense. And there's a fracas between Lynn Swan and our cornerback, Ron Bolton. Ron Bolton was our best defensive player. And they get into a fracas, and the referee, Ben Dreif, points at our number 28, Ron Bolton, and says, you're out of the game against the innocent Lynn Swan. I've gotten to know Lynn through the years, and I've asked him the story I'm about to tell you. He said it's not true, and he said it with a smile, too. So, the Steelers then took a 10-0 lead early. Now, Art Modell in those days would sometimes have a few pops during the games. And by the end of the first half, it didn't look good for the good guys, my team. And so I'm over in the press box because we never sat with the owner. Ozzie Newsome and I have never sat with the owner during a game because that's a bad thing. Because you get emotional too. So if you say, why are we doing that? And I said, I don't know why we're doing that. We should be passing the ball. The first thing Art Modell would do, we'd see the head coach. He said, well, I thought we should have passed a little more, and Kevin agrees with me. So Ozzie and I stopped sitting with Art, because anything we said or did would be repeated. So anyway, Art calls me and he says, I want you, after this game is over, to take me to see Ben Dreif, the referee. I said, Art, you can't do that. He goes, don't tell me I can't do that. And I said, Art, it's against the rules. Don't tell me it's against the rules. I wrote the rules. I said, oh, all right. Now, the press box is on one side of old Three River Stadium, and the visiting owner is on the other side. So it's a half-day journey to get over there. So I spent most of the third quarter wandering over to retrieve Art Modell, and by the time I get him down to the official room area in the bowels of Three River Stadium, the game has just ended. And we see the door, and it basically has every sign imaginable that says, do not enter, this is a protected area, there's a security guy there with a big Mountie hat on, and Art says, I am the owner of the Cleveland Browns, and I'm looking for Ben Bryant, and the security guy backs up, and Art bangs on the door. And you can hear Big Ben Bryant, who's a big official with a big voice, and he goes, who is there? And Art kind of straightens up and goes, Arthur B. Modell, owner of the Cleveland Browns, and I want to see Ben Bryant. I'm coming in there. And you hear Ben Bryant's voice just as strong as, Mr. Modell, it's a $10,000 fine if you come in here. Art kind of straightens up, looks at me and winks, and he goes, Ben, would you come out for $5,000? He did. And to Pete Rozelle, the then commissioner, who's a good friend of Art, they were best of friends. To Pete Rozelle's credit, he only fined Art $5,000. The other story I was asked to tell is about Brian Billick. Leading up to the draft, the next 3 days, there are a lot of studies done on all these college students who are now going to become professional football players. And one of the process that is part of this journey is something called the Combine. How many know what the Combine is? Most of you? So the Combine, all the college players who are eligible go to Indianapolis, and they basically are pricked and prodded and physicals, and they jump forward and backwards, and they run 40-yard dashes, and if they're receivers, they catch the ball. All of these things, all these tests, they lift 225 pounds as many times as they can, and that happens there. And along with that, you get, there are like 320 players there, you get to interview 60 of those players, no more than 60, 15 minutes at a time. But the only time to do that is in the evening. So there are long days for the players and for our coaches and scouts who are all there. By the way, we send to the NFL Combine, Indianapolis should bless the NFL, we sent as one team. Well, last year we had 71 people there. That includes all of our doctors, all of our trainers, all of our scouts, all of our coaches, PR staff. I mean, it's amazing. You can't walk anywhere. If you have to be somewhere in a half hour, you better leave an hour early, because you're going to see 50 people you know, and unless you're really rude, you have to say hello. So anyway, Brian Billick is our head coach, and he's in the room where we're interviewing the players, and it's the fourth night of interviewing the 60 players, and everybody's tired. The players are tired, our staff is tired, and so before the next guy comes in, they hand a sheet on the player. And Brian Billick's looking at the sheet, and it's basically a rap sheet on this guy. You know, he'd been arrested in high school for theft in the high school. He was arrested in high school for being in a stolen car. He was arrested in college for stealing a computer. He was thrown off his team his sophomore year. So before the guy walks in, Brian looks around and says, "Can I get the first question on this guy?" And, I said, "Sure, Brian, go ahead." So the guy comes in, sits down. He's polite and refreshing as can be. "Nice to meet you, sirs." He's doing all the right things. And then Brian says, "Look, I've got your history here. Can I ask you one question?" And the young man says, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, coach." And he goes, "Are you stupid? Or are you a thug?" And the player smiled and sat up and goes, "Are those my only choices?" Brian says, "I like you already." And the guy ended up playing 11 years in the league and made 2 Pro Bowls and never had any issues at all. So it can't be done. I know it's baseball season, right? And the NBA playoffs are going on, and Trump and Clinton are making a lot of news, and Game of Thrones started Sunday night. I have not watched, so if you want to talk about it, I don't. I DVR'd it. But I'm sure you have questions about the Ravens. As Mike says, we're a year-round sport. So I'm going to open it up for questions, and I'll answer questions about the NFL as best I can about other teams, but I certainly know a lot about the Ravens. So does somebody want to start first? Right here. Yes, ma'am.
For the benefit of our students here, do you utilize interns and in what capacity?
Yes, we're a big intern team, and we pay our interns. Oh, do we use interns? Yes, we hire interns. Most of our interns are college graduates, and most of our interns have a season-long internship. We do not want free interns. We do not want interns trading credit for being with us. We pay our interns because we think that's the right thing to do. It's highly, highly competitive. But we hire interns in public relations, community relations, operations, training staff, equipment. Am I missed anybody? Even scouting hires interns. And then our coaching staff through the NFL has a minority internship program where 2 minorities come every year and coach with us, at least through training camp and sometimes through the season. Yes, sir.
Would you please put a probability on the return or the start of your #1 draft pick from last year, this year, and healthy return of your Pro Bowl winning quarterback?
Well, I'll start with, the question is about the health of Joe Flacco and the health of our #1 choice from last year. We feel we have 2 #1 choices this year because we've got 0 from last year's #1 choice. On the first day of training camp, I happened to be watching the play. Joe Flacco throws this deep out to our #1 pick, Rashard Perriman from Central Florida, who is as faster than Mike Wallace. And he takes off after this ball, and he makes this great diving catch that we are all excited about. Ozzie Newsome almost came out of his seat watching it, sitting on a chair near me. Because it's the #1 pick, and he makes a big play. The first time fans are seeing him at training camp, and media are seeing him, and he doesn't get up. And he damages patella on his knee, and he fought and fought to try to come back. We wanted to get him back, we kept delaying. And finally, by late November, it wasn't working. We finally put him on injured reserve. So he is healthy. He's back in the building with our off-season program. And he knows about the NFL. His father played 11 years in the league. And so we think we have, it was horrible not to have him last year because we really could have used him because defenses were just crowding us because we didn't have the speed we needed to scare him. So we'll have that. Joe Flacco, we're rather quiet about, but he's ahead of the game. It's amazing when you're dedicated to only rehabbing an injury, how fast you could come back. But I would bet within a month after Joe had knee surgery, and the old-fashioned that they opened him up to make sure it was all put together, Joe was bouncing around. I saw him jumping, and he just started throwing. But we'll probably be cautious with that investment and make sure we have him for opening day, and not necessarily needing him to throw in May and June. We'll have him throw some in camp and get him into action, but I've been told he'd be ready for the start of camp, and then he'll certainly be ready for the start of the regular season. Yes, sir?
I haven't checked the schedule yet, but I believe that you are playing the Eagles this year.
We are.
Which quarterback do you think you'll be facing?
I'm really going to draft tomorrow. I don't think we're going to face Sam Bradford. No, I think we might. I think Sam Bradford is the Eagles' starting quarterback, the incumbent, and he announced yesterday he doesn't want to be on the Eagles anymore. He wants to be somewhere else. Tom Condon, his agent, a former NFL player, he's a tough guy, and he's trying to push the Eagles, but the Eagles will do what's best for them. It's tough to start a rookie quarterback. Some have success with it. 2008, we started a rookie from Delaware. We were forced to because our 2 other quarterbacks got hurt during training camp, and we went to the AFC Championship game with rookie Joe Flacco, and it turned out pretty well for us. They started a 5-year run where we went to the playoffs 5 years in a row and won a playoff game each year. Joe's the first quarterback in NFL history to ever do that, and John Harbaugh was the first head coach to ever do that. So great marriage with Joe and John. But I would bet, is it the third game of the year?
I think so, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so, no, they're at our place. I think it's somewhat early. We'll likely see a veteran quarterback, either Sam or Chase Daniels before they play the rookie. Unless the rookie's just spectacular, or somebody gets hurt. I'll go over here one time. No, I'll come in. Yes, sir.
And I understand the power of the NFL on television. From a standpoint of, it used to be you just had football on Sundays, and we had Monday Night Football, and we had Saturdays towards the end of the season. Now we have Thursdays. Do you think that there's ever a point where there's going to be a little bit of dilution as far as football is concerned? Because when you consider that right now, football season starts, you can almost watch football 7 days a week between college and the NFL.
Yeah, you know, and the question is, can we dilute the product by having the NFL on so many nights of the week? If the networks could, they'd put us on every night because it works right now. But the NFL is very aware of it. First, out of respect to high school football, we will not play on Friday night or Saturday. When we play on Saturday, we play the last 2 weekends of the year on Saturday after the high school seasons are over. So, and we only do 2 games because that's out of respect to bowl games at that time, because we respect college, which is developing all of our players. It is, the numbers don't indicate that there's any dilution yet. But you can, if you start on Sunday afternoon and watch your favorite team, you watch the Eagles, then you can come back Sunday night and watch an NFL game. You can come back Monday night and watch the ESPN product. You come back Thursday night because there's a Thursday night game every week, and then start again on Sunday. So that's a lot of football. But Thursday night football, which just started a couple years ago, wins Thursday night. You know, Thursday night will be the 3rd highest ranked show of the week in television, and the first 2 are Sunday night football and Monday night football, and sometimes Thursday night football beats Monday night football, depending on the game. So the networks, you know, are putting out The Voice and all those other things. They're getting massacred by football. But I agree with your question in the sense that we have to be aware that we don't dilute our product and make people want it. And so I don't think we'll expand from where we are right now. But the networks would do it tomorrow. If we said, how'd you like Tuesday night football, they'll say, how about Wednesday too? You know, so, yes. Yes.
Thank you, Kevin. I should let you know I'm not a pastor, but I do work with the Salvation Army, so thank you for your work in Maryland with the Salvation Army. My question is about the football game and culture. There's been some interesting publicity recently. NPR did a piece about how the game of football evolves and changes very quickly. It's very flexible. Then, on the other hand, you have documentaries like Concussion. So, do you foresee changes to the game, to the industry as it evolves in the next year or two? Or, and if not, maybe you could speak more about servant leadership and how that plays out in the Ravens organization.
Well, the question basically is the game having to change because of the violent